So let's get to it. Dr. Mike Rocha from Hawthorne Medical and New Bedford. Well, how are you, Mike?
I'm great. How are you, Chris?
Still getting over the first 30-second jitters. It doesn't go away each episode. As you know, you've been on a couple times now. Every month we have these awareness campaigns, and you and I had sat down a couple times already and discussed stuff, and I never realized that heart disease is the number one cause of death in the world until you brought it up. Everybody just kind of overlooks it, and everybody's just like, oh, it's guns, it's cars, it's this, it's that, when statistically nothing's remotely close. I mean, we're looking at killing over 375,000 Americans a year die of heart disease. What's going on with our country? Is it preventative? What can we do?
Yeah, well, I think that we do really well with acute care. So if a person has a heart attack or somebody has an acute event, we do really well in this country. But many of the things that we're taking care of are chronic diseases. And, so the things that lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, being overweight, smoking, those things actually are preventive. And we can do a better job of really working on fine-tuning those things. We have opportunities that we don't realize are really medicine. Food is medicine. Exercise is medicine.
Absolutely.
Community is medicine. And the more that we learn, loneliness is a disease. And we're starting to see that these things don't just affect our emotional well-being. They also affect our physical well-beings.
Hey, you brought up that loneliness thing.
Yeah.
There was a guy on Facebook, I don't know if you saw it, where he just stayed out of contact with everyone for 10 days. And he went crazy.
Right.
He just went absolutely nuts. Then you bring up the walking and exercising. My wife and I, we've talked about this. Used to walk every single day. Right. Together, and it was our time together. We used to bring the dog a lot, but with kids that kind of goes by the wayside. You know how that works. And not only are you doing well for yourself, but it's a good time for people to get out and enjoy some fresh air, something that we don't normally do. In general, I try to go to the gym all the time, but I had an awakening last year when my doctor told me, "Hey man, you got to get on cholesterol meds and possibly." Yep. High blood pressure medicine, and I'm like, oh man, I'm just turning 40 here. I haven't even turned 40 yet.
Right.
So I made some cautious decisions. I lost 30 pounds, and he told me this several times prior because I have a thyroid issue that I have to continually go. And then my January appointment came. He's like, dude, still not good, So then May came. I've lost some weight, I've been exercising, I changed my lifestyle. He's like, you don't need medicine anymore.
Right.
You're good. He's like, as a matter of fact, your thyroid's doing wonderful at this point. Because we were having trouble leveling it off.
Yep.
And I guess the diet and exercise helps that too.
We keep talking about cures. The cure is in the prevention. And the reality is that what we're trying to do here is to get people to realize that they are their own best doctor. We should really be, as docs, we should be coaches. We're not just prescribers. We should actually empowering patients to be the best that they can be. And we don't always do that. And I think that sometimes we as physicians sometimes take the easier way out, and we may prescribe something. But I think that challenging yourself like you did to try to be able to make those changes and then not need it, that's a huge win for you. And I think that that's really important. And that's what we should be trying to do first. And I think the other thing is at this time of year, it's a little bit more challenging as it's not as easy to walk.
No, it's
right?
not at all. Yeah.
So
and the warm days are wet generally.
Yep. So trying to find those options of being able to keep moving or do something indoors is, that's maybe the best that people could do. But there's a lot of ways, even within people's houses. Just getting up and down the stairs, making sure that you just consciously get up and move, and that, we can't just sit on the couch. We have to keep moving.
It's tough because sometimes in the cold weather, the couch is a great place to be.
Right.
I'm all like, yesterday I had training all day. I'm a defensive tactics instructor for the court system, so we moved around, but it really wasn't much exercise, when you're instructing. But when I got home, it was just one of those days I just wanted to sit down, after a long day. So I do have those days also. And I guess you just got to find the proper balance.
Yeah. I try to do little things with patients. For example, I'll say, we all have, or many of us have, smartphones that actually count our steps.
Yeah.
And some people say, hey, well, I was really active at work today and blah, blah, blah. And you go, all right, how many steps? And they look down and they're like, oh, like 2,000. I said, oh, how about trying at the end of your day just to try to make a number that's reachable. Try to get to 5,000. So when you get home, take a look at your phone, be honest, check in the mirror and say, how many steps did you get to? And either challenge yourself to whatever number, 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
And that way you're kind of just always kind of just being aware of where you're at.
Even as couples, co-workers, or friends, you can get a little challenge going on.
No doubt.
It's something, if you want to put some competition into it. I know I'm competitive, so I'd probably do a little more walking if that were the case,
Yep.
Now, there is prevention with this heart disease.
Yep.
And, we talk about exercise. What type of diets do you recommend? I know, you had a little quiz that you had sent me for Love Your Heart Month, and some of the diets you brought up are in that quiz, but also, me as a person, I went out and I did my own diet, but I didn't really have a nutritionist tell me.
Right.
I was thinking that maybe my doctor would say, hey, we should get you a nutritionist, but he didn't. So that's neither here nor there, but if a guy like me that has to lose 30 pounds and get his cholesterol down and just wants to be able to live around for his 5 and 2-year-olds, what do we do?
Yeah, so the first thing, top of the list, vegetables and fruits. Just about every diet that's healthy is going to start with that. And, there's actually the DASH diet has been shown to if people eat, actually it's part of the quiz, I don't want to give it away yet, but so
it's on the screen, so people are taking it as they're listening.
So if people are eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, and the DASH diet actually is 8 fruits and vegetables a day, you can lower your blood pressure by about 10 points, which is actually pretty good when it's coming up against medications, right? So, and I get those people sometimes, I don't eat any vegetables. So going 1 or 2 is actually a big deal, but there's ways that you can kind of mix in a whole bunch of things throughout your day. If you say, okay, well, I start, with some fruits in the morning, and you do a salad at lunch, and you put a lot of different vegetables in that, you can hack your way through the day, so to speak, that you've got, more vegetables in one sitting than you think. And so it's all very doable.
I'm a smoothie guy.
Yep.
First thing in the morning, that's what I do. That's all I have time for.
Right.
I grab my little mixer. I'll throw in a banana, my strawberries, my blueberries, and some peanut butter in there.
Right.
And the protein, obviously. And then all of a sudden, you're up on your way to your accomplishment of your 10 vegetables or fruits per day.
Yep. And I think that the thing is you have to be very careful, because certain foods that you may eat in the morning, you have to ask yourself, well, how do you feel? So if you're eating certain things that have lots of sugar in it or lots of white flour stuff, and you're hungry 2 hours later, then you're not sustaining yourself. And I think that what you have to do, for example, every morning I start with some steel-cut oats, some nuts and berries, and a cup of coffee, right? And that's actually the way I pretty much start every day. And, it's not just eating for comfort, it's eating to live, right? And that's one of the things that we have to take. It's
that's the issue. A lot of people use food as enjoyment rather than sustenance.
It's an antidepressant, right? People treat it as an antidepressant.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the Mediterranean diet is there's not one Mediterranean diet, but it has common threads, and that typically is the one that's been studied the most for heart disease, and it's been shown to reduce strokes, heart attacks, and death because of a stroke or heart attack. So that actually consists of lots of vegetables and fruits, nuts, olive oil, good fats, avocados, lean meats, fish. Fish is good for you in a lot of ways, and many studies looked at that. Whole grains, like the steel-cut oats or the brown rice or quinoa or that kind of things, and really limits your dairy, limits your sweets, refined grains. I should say it's like white flour stuff.
Yeah. Basically, this junk just turns into sugar anyway.
Yeah, and then also limits red meat. So those are it's kind of a good place.
That's where you lose me.
Yeah, well, I said limit, right?
Yeah.
So and I think it's the one that's most attainable for people, because if you say, look, I want you to just cut everything out.
Can't do it.
It's not going to happen, right?
No,
and that's where people fall down when they go on specific diets, because they say, well, we've cut all these things out, and what we find is on these fad diets that people gain it all back afterwards. So what it has to be is it's changing lifestyle. It's not a diet.
Yeah.
It's like, and the thing is most of the time if you're eating healthy, the secondary gain is the weight loss. I try to work with people and say, it's not about the weight loss. It's about how do you feel after you eat? And then you go, oh, I feel better. Or, oh, 2 hours later, I'm tired. Or, or I get this big, energy high and then I crash down. Then you're not eating in a sustainable way. And your body, if you really pay attention to it, it's going to be able to be a good guide as to how you're feeling.
Absolutely. I mean, with each person digest their food differently. Like everybody's mechanism is different. We're all humans, but we all process what we ingest differently.
Yep.
So certain diets work for certain people. I guess I'm just making an excuse because I love steak, and it works for me. But not to continue with the point on how you said people like to gain, to lose, and all that stuff.
Yep. I
learned this from a vet. My dog's a little overweight. Ozzy, he's a little plumpy bulldog, and they didn't say just cut it all out.
Yeah.
My vet specifically said if he loses a pound or two a month, that's incredible.
Yeah, right, and that's important. He's
going to feel better, and everything else is going to work better. So
right.
Just you don't have to. I guess what I'm trying to say is people don't kill yourself, and just go cold turkey on everything.
Right, and I was there. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen, I did the TEDx New Bedford talk. I put up there my own story, and I was eating at Aubon Pain as a medical resident and put on a lot of weight. I was 230 pounds at that point.
I can't picture you at 230.
Yeah, I was 230. I went from being a basketball player to just not being in balance, and so it happens fast. And but the thing is that it's about making healthier choices and feeling better. And so
a lot of people don't realize that Dr. Mike's a state champion, by the way.
A long time ago, and
it's all right.
Far away.
They can't take that from you, brother. They can't take that from you. A lot of people never have been there, and you have. So,
well, the glasses and the reduced height, people may not believe.
Man, I'll be honest with you. When I first, I'm like, no, and then it's like, yep, he was, and he can still ball, guys. All right, let's move on to a different topic. I mean, we're just going to touch upon smoking.
Yeah, tough one.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, the tobacco industry, I'm a smoker of many years. I've quit since I've had children. Thank God.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing. I appreciate my wife a lot for it because now I'm going to be able to live longer for my children, hopefully, because of that decision. And she, pushed me through it. It took a lot of trying, and finally, your son, your wife, you're like, all right, man, now's the time. But it wasn't easy. And it's also a huge factor with heart disease.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah, and unfortunately, smoking is still responsible for 20% of deaths. So it's a big deal. And I think that in our community, unfortunately, we're about 3% higher than the rest of the state, and it's a real challenge. And it's the good news is people do stop smoking, and I give everybody a big high five when they're able to do that because I know how important that is for just so many things. But it's an addiction, and it's one of those things that. People start out young, and it's a real hard one to change. We've been a little creative at the wellness program on Sundays, and this week he'll be there is John Barboza is a hypnotist. So we've been trying to do some different things, and in a lot of ways, sometimes medications work for people. Sometimes cold turkey is the way that people are able to quit. And it's don't give up. So for some people it may be the 4th or the 5th or the 6th, whatever.
I tried many
whatever
times,
it is, But and I think that people just keep coming back, and it's important for us as physicians to keep reminding people and never give up because it's important to help coach and guide those people to the right direction.
I got a quick question I'm going to take from somebody that's viewing. R.A. Ponce asks, what is regurgitation in the heart?
Yeah, so regurgitation, when the valves close, okay, so each chamber of the heart, 4 chambers of the heart, there's at different times, one valve will close compared to 2 valves closed at one time, and the other 2 valves pretty much close pretty close to the. And when those valves close, typically the blood flow does not go back through that valve. If there's a little bit of backflow at that time, that's when the valve is closed and some of the blood is actually going backwards through the closed valve. So that's regurgitation. Hopefully that answers that question.
Confused the heck out of me, but I didn't ask it, so we're just going to pass it along. let's keep moving now on the heart thing. Now, we talked about the prevention as far as diet. We talked about the smoking.
Yep.
And obviously with diet comes the obesity. Obesity is a factor
Yeah.
when it comes to heart disease.
It
Your
is.
body's getting extra strain put on it, and your heart is pumping blood throughout your body, and it's the engine that drives your blood.
Yeah, it also drives what we call metabolic syndrome sometimes. And metabolic syndrome is kind of, abnormal blood sugars, sometimes diabetes or pre-diabetes, high blood pressure, abnormal cholesterol. Sometimes we actually see thyroid problems mixed in with some of those issues. So it is, again, it can raise a lot of the risk factors. And, like we talked about, it's one of those things that it's about eating healthy to try to avoid those things and creating a culture. Right, and sometimes it can be certain things culturally that certain foods and different things that we may have to kind of just be very careful of,
Yeah.
and
People's schedules are tough
Yep.
to, we say all this stuff, and I'm always on the go now, and unfortunately, to sustain, there's days where I live off protein bars and protein shakes, and I just stuff it in my bag.
Yep.
So that way I'm not stopping places. You just plan ahead a little bit, throw some nuts, some almonds in the bag,
Yep.
and that's what I find. So scheduling is tough, whether it's schooling, parenting, working. We have a million excuses on why, you
Yep.
can't get it done, and it's tough. The gym sometimes is something I can't accomplish. Today's one of those days, work, kids, show.
right.
Put the kids to bed. I'd be at the gym at midnight tonight. Not that I haven't been. I used to go late all the time, but sleep's also important too. It's something Dr. Mike
No
doesn't
doubt.
do.
I
He
do-
says he does,
I
but I
do
don't
sleep.
believe it. I don't believe he does way too much to sleep.
I think what you said though is a really good point for people is that what's faster than an apple or an orange? That's pretty fast. And a handful of nuts could be your way that if you put that, because everybody, when we're stopping at the convenience store, the convenience, unfortunately, is oftentimes not the easiest choice, right?
When you're at Cumbies and you see a bag of gummy worms and a Snickers bar, who the heck wants that apple? So you just got to make it so you don't stop at Cumbies.
I think that what happens, though, is as we change our diets, though, like, for example, I can't eat things that are very sweet anymore. I really can't. And I think that what happens is you start to taste foods differently. Things that you think didn't have taste very differently.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we have got those set points that are just,
100%.
and unfortunately, a lot of the food industries they have scientists that are figuring out what's going to cut it, how the food tastes,
Yeah, absolutely.
and so, I think it's important to realize that, it's almost as if you're coming off of those foods that how it changes.
You just brought up a point. Maybe this is why I felt horrible this morning, because I told Mike before the show, I said, last night I actually slept, and I woke up miserable. Normally I get 5 to 6 hours, which is bad itself. But also, I'm going to admit something else. Maybe I felt bad because I don't eat chocolate anymore. And guess who stole all his kids' candy last night?
Okay.
Me.
There you
I actually felt guilty. I'm like, all right, Bray, you're not going to miss this huge Hershey kiss.
Now your kids
And I
know.
went.
Now they know who took
They don't
it.
watch the show anyway. My wife, I'm like, you watch the show? She's like, a little bit. The kids are crazy. I'm like, you don't care. So, maybe that's what it was, that, your body gets used to it. It becomes a habit. And once you make some changes and you see your doctor not telling you, hey, you don't belong on cholesterol meds anymore. Hey, you don't need to worry about that blood pressure med. And you go to the gym and you look in the mirror and you're like, hey, man, I look good, man. I feel good. It becomes a habit. It becomes addictive. And it's something you can go off the deep end with exercise. We all see that in diet as well.
Yep.
Everything in moderation is fine, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a medical professional like yourself, but if you, here and there, you do a little bit of exercise and once in a while you indulge to get away the cravings, you can do it.
For many people, there's some people though. It's just that one time. It's like in their back, and and that happens a lot of times when you look at the holidays. People get into trouble, and then
it's tough to dig themselves out of that hole.
So if they can really treat it with an awareness, and they have to know themselves, I think that's the biggest thing. Is that people have to say, hey, you know what? I know that if I go ahead and do this, that for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be in that rut again. And they have to be honest with themselves. And they have to be able to say, okay, I can or cannot. And you're right. Some people can, every once in a while is okay. Sometimes they can't, and what happens though too when we look at food though is there's a lot of these instances, or even smoking. I see this happen a lot. There's like something happens in a family, or something happens to them, lose a job, or someone passes away, or somebody that is really sick and they take care of, and they go back to sometimes their old habits because it's comfortable. It's a crutch. And I think that what we have to do is we have to help them and help them realize, and not to be judgmental, it's to say, hey, you know what? I get it. I know where you're feeling, let's try to work with this, because one of the things that happens is that you don't want people to feel like they're just down on themselves, because then they really, it's like, here, we're going to help you again. We're going to say, okay, this is where you're at. It's no problem. We'll meet you where you're at, and we're going to help you to get back to where you need to be, because sometimes people come in and they're so down. They're like, it's not. We're here to help you, and that's really the most important thing. And like I said, my own story. I had definitely fallen down a path of not eating healthy, being stressed out, working ridiculous hours, and it can happen to me, who's supposed to be trained, that it can happen to anybody.
Yeah,
and that's where I meet people where they're at.
I'm 1 year removed from man boobs and a bad diet. So it's. And I can easily get back. It doesn't take much.
Right.
It does not take much. I put on weight getting my wife food. She's one of those lucky ones that eats whatever she wants.
Yeah, it's not fair, right?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah.
And then you got that bag of McDonald's that she loves.
Right.
And there's fries in there that actually I would want to dip my hand into. And I'm like, no, just here, take this junk. You're talking about getting these people to help, doing all this stuff for these, and you New Bedford your organization that you run has really been stepping it up. You got these mall walks that people are doing. You're giving away prizes for challenges.
Yeah.
You set up a challenge with a group from Worcester that does something similar.
Yep.
Explain the walk and then explain the challenge.
Yes. So Walk with a Doc is actually international. I think there's like 360 or maybe even more sites across the world. And every doc that runs it has to do it at least once a month. So we actually stepped it up at the beginning of this year, and now we have 10 other doctors, and we're doing it once a week. So it's become more of a walking group. And typically in the summer we do it at Buttonwood Park, and in the winter we do it at the mall. It's usually about 2 miles, whatever way it works out, 4 times around the mall or once around Buttonwood Park. And there's only 2 chapters in Massachusetts. And my friend Nandita Kansara she is a primary care doctor, internal medicine doctor in Worcester, and she's got tremendous energy. And she works out of St. Vincent's Hospital, and she's been doing the walk for several years as well. So she had a big week. She had 45 walkers a couple of weeks ago. I said, "Look, we need to get New Bedford motivated." So I said, "Let's do a little challenge. Let's see who can get the most number of walkers this week." And she ended up with 57 walkers, which I think was her largest number of walkers, and we ended up with 74 in New Bedford last weekend on Saturday, and we walked at the same time. And, I think that people that hadn't seen one another, and, you do the walk with a bunch of people in a group, you don't even know that it happened. And I think that, again, bringing community and it's a lot of fun.
That's also part of it.
It's fun.
Yeah, we're not just getting healthy. You're bringing people together, and then with this, I'm sure you're getting people that are doing other things too, other causes that you're involved in. You're getting them, you're recruiting them to do other stuff,
Yeah. So we had, like I said, we had 74 walkers, and it was, we're going to do it again this week. Dr. John Beer, who's a cardiologist with me, is going to lead the walk. And the nice thing is the doctors that are doing it there's doctors from Greater New Bedford Community Health Center, Hawthorne, and South Coast that are all decided that they're going to take their turn. And I think that it gives us this ability to collaborate and bring more people and more patients together. And if you could put the benefits of a walk into a pill, I mean, it helps with your mental health. It helps with high blood pressure, your diabetes, cardiovascular disease. It's like the wonder pill, right?
And just walking alone. I said it earlier. I used to do it with a wife, and it's just fun to get out there and talk to your spouse or significant other, because the world's busy.
Right.
So when you're walking around, unless you plan on, you're not staring at your phone. You're getting some fresh air. You're having a conversation, something that's lacking of inside
face-to-face
time, And it's part of doing this New Bedford guy thing. I've learned is I'm way more social. Like I get out and I'll meet you at the cafe, or you know what I mean. I meet the guests and go talk to people, and that's part of the reward of doing this show. It's been cool. I'm like, man, I'm not always on Facebook chatting with people. I still go on Facebook because it's all intricate part of what I do. But the face-to-face time that you go out for a walk and you enjoy someone else's company and you're not staring at your phone for the half hour you're walking,
Right.
is huge. I mean, that alone, people, like, I know right now it's cold. My wife went out for a jog today. It was wet, but she got out there. And it's a nice time to just enjoy life.
It is.
You know.
And at this time, the mall is open at 6 o'clock in the morning for people to walk, except for Sundays, I think it's 9.
And it's free, right?
It's free. You go there and walk. And, I think that it's especially this time of year, and some people, they like the gym. There's some people that they don't like the gym. That's not, you tell them. So it gives people an opportunity to say, hey, look, this is free. I can go do this and I can get my exercise. And, usually when we go there, there's a couple of super walkers at that mall that are there like every day, and they do like probably 4 miles, and they've already been there for a while by the time we show up, and they're like buzzing around and lapping us kind of thing. But, everybody should be able to walk at their own pace. And one of the things that's important about the walks we do is that, we do end up with people that may have either physical, like orthopedic issues or cardiovascular things. And it's like, people walk at your own pace. This isn't a race. You don't get a number. You don't have to finish fast. Walk at your own pace.
Enjoy your time.
Enjoy your time. If you say you got to sit there, and the nice thing about the mall,
benches.
You stop, you sit.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really an underutilized opportunity. Of course, if there's too many people that are shopping and and using too much money, I guess that's good for the mall sometimes. Maybe not good for the pocketbook, but it's all.
If you get in there early enough, you can get out fast enough. It's all part of the plan. All right, let's move on to you had something pretty cool happen recently. You were over at City Hall.
Yep.
And Mayor Mitchell made an official proclamation that February 8th was Love Your Heart Day.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Love Your Heart, we've been very fortunate in New Bedford. We are the only Love Your Heart site on the East Coast. So Love Your Heart actually started in San Diego, I think about 12 years ago. A friend of mine, Nick Macchione, is the Health and Human Services Director there. And when we talk about heart disease being the number one killer, San Diego County is probably the only county in the country that heart disease is not the number one killer.
No kidding.
Absolutely.
A lot of it has to do with their climate and how cool it is.
Everybody says that, though, but they have their own challenges there. And there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily naturally healthy there. But what they have done is they've got all the mayors and all the counties bought into this concept of Live Well San Diego. And they focus in on diet, exercise, and smoking cessation because they know that those three things lead to over 50% of deaths through cardiovascular disease, through strokes and heart attacks, cancer, diabetes, and pulmonary disease. So they've focused in on that. They do a day every year where they do county-wide blood pressure checks. I think they did 50,000 this year. This is our third year participating in Love Your Heart. And again, recognizing that about 80% of heart attacks are preventable through lifestyle, we wanted to get people to help them know their numbers. And one of those numbers is blood pressure. And so many people don't know their blood pressure. And so half of people that even have high blood pressure, so you're talking about 70 or 80 million people with high blood pressure, only 50% are treated. So we did this Sunday, even though we had the proclamation on the Thursday.
Yeah.
The Sunday was when we went to 20 sites throughout the community and did free blood pressure screenings. We went to churches, we went to community centers, we were at 3 supermarkets in the city, and this year we got to double the number. We did 681 blood pressure checks in the city of New Bedford.
Cool.
And we also provided not just the blood pressure checks, but provided people with information and
how to get help if necessary.
How to get help, and because there's a lot of people out there that still, I don't want to see people come in for the first time and have their heart attack and realize they had diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, and it was never treated, because that's a tragedy on our part.
Not to digress, but I always do. We always discuss, in America on Facebook, politics, insurance, and everybody's right to health, and insurance costs are so sky high because we don't take care of the preventative stuff.
Yeah,
we are just we just react. We're a reactionary society, and nothing. And with everything. It's just crazy how reactional we are. And I don't know if it's just us, but it seems like it's,
But you don't see the things that are happening on the inside. And that's the problem is these things are very much silent killers, right?
Yeah, my reaction is when you're having a heart attack, it's too late.
Right. And so you try to get people motivated, et cetera. And I have this conversation all the time with all walks of life. And, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't see it. It's not happening to me until, again, it's too late. And it's really sad to see that happen. And, for us as a community, I think that I'd like to really see us model what they've done in San Diego. Boy, if we could lower heart disease in New Bedford to not the number one killer anymore, boy, that would be huge. And
absolutely.
I'd be out of business. I'd have to find a new job, right? Because
here's a doctor trying to go out of business.
But you know how much? So how much money do you think is actually allocated on healthcare dollars? Now, again, we spend over $3 trillion a year on healthcare. 17 to 18% of our gross domestic product goes to healthcare. How much do you think goes to wellness and prevention?
I'd say less than 10% of that.
You're right. So about 5%. So about 5% of our healthcare dollars. So
we're reactionary. We're proofs in the pudding.
And we do great. We run. Somebody has a heart attack. We do a very good job treating it. Somebody has a serious arrhythmia, but
we don't need to get to that point.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we don't need to get to that point. Debbie Cronin chimes in and says, "What does the doctor recommend to eat for meals?" We've already discussed that, Deb. You can go back at the beginning, but I can give you the cliff notes: vegetables, fruit, vegetables, fruit. Watch the big hit rewind, pull back the little tab on our screen, and Dr. Mike goes over that real fast. Dr. Mike, one last thing.
Yep.
You got something coming up in May.
Yeah, in May, this is going to be the third annual Southern New England Heart Walk. And we've been doing it at UMass Dartmouth, which is a great site because it's a ring, there's parking, and the American Heart Association has really been trying to partner in our region. They've done a lot of their walks have been in Providence, and they've spent the last couple of years of developing a great walk here in our own region. And I would say that last year we continue to work on growing that walk to grow awareness. There's a lot of people out there, not just strokes and heart attacks, but there's young kids even out there with congenital heart disease. Yeah. And it's a day to sometimes remember people that we may have lost. It's also a day for survivors to kind of, so to speak, show their scars and show that they're still living their lives, because we want people back in the game. Part of the reason that we do the programming or at New Bedford Well is to get people off the bench and get them back in the game. It's not just to prevent, but it's to say, hey, you know what, you still got a lot of life to live. And I'm very excited to have been part of the executive leadership team for this Heart Walk, because there's a lot of people out there that are committed to changing the discussion on heart disease. So May 19th, we have a team, New Bedford Wellness Initiative. If you actually go for the Southern New England Heart Walk, New Bedford Wellness Initiative, you can join our team or donate and share your story. And stories are really can make a difference, because it's almost as if
brings awareness, man.
There's a stigma almost around, like we talked about. If people don't talk about heart disease, it's like they don't really want to necessarily realize that it can happen to young people, and it shouldn't, and we need to step forward and step it up.
Definitely. I'm all about getting the word out, and I honestly, we hear about, we had a tragedy last night, and when you compare these type of tragedies, not to cut them short or
Yep.
say that they're not tragedies in its own, but the numbers are just astounding in comparison. Like heart disease, I didn't realize until we sat down and talked. I sequestered Dr. Rocha for an opioid conversation, get some expertise out of him, and we quickly went back and forth, and we went right to this heart disease being the number one killer in America.
And even women. So many women think that, for example, breast cancer or cancer is the number one killer. It's not even close. It's still heart disease for women. And
I had the men and women / here. We didn't get to that, but
Yep.
men are more likely, but it still kills plenty of women.
Yeah, and we did a Go Red Day at just the other day at Hawthorne to bring that kind of awareness. We have to, women have to realize oftentimes they're late when they're having symptoms to get checked out. So I always say, if you're worried, if in doubt, get checked out. It's really that simple, because I'd rather have, catch people and say that they're well and move on rather than miss somebody. That's really important.
Mike and I are going live on Saturday, I believe. We're going to do a roundtable discussion on current events, and I'm going to see if you can pop in on that. After the show, I'll give you a text.
Okay.
I want to discuss the whole president's SNAP benefits change on getting USDA food and giving people less of a choice, and what you think about it as a medical professional.
Okay.
Because I think that, if you look at the money spent by benefits soda is number one on the list.
Yeah, it's a
So if you take that option away, it may help out too. But I want to hear that on Saturday. I want to hear your professional and your personal opinion
you bet.
on that.